Okay, so I've done all my cut and tuck. Cut and tuck, cut and tuck. It looks nice and clean. And I am ready to do my rim. Now what I do is, I've scarfed this for about, what, 3 inches. And I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the inside of my basket. Get it measured. So I'd like to do it away from the handle. And then this is where I use the big clips, right? So this has been soaking for a while. And I'm just gonna temporarily put this in here. Coming around. And I'm gonna overlap that where that's scarfed. Okay. So, I'm just going to adjust my clips. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my number 8. Now, in this case, mine is natural. Yours will be purple. But I think all my purple went into kits. So, natural it is. So, what I want to do is I always call this making the sandwich. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to not put the outside rim on yet, and I'm going to use some tie wraps and hold this in place, give it some memory while I'm working on the outside rim. And the outside rim is going to kind of float. Okay. So, remember this is only temporary. So like maybe every 3rd or 4th stake, I'm going to put the false rim and the inner rim together. And then I get rid of these big clips. This is just the way I do it. Like I say, if you are a big fan of keeping clips on and not doing the tie wrap, you can do that too. It's just another method. So I want this to butt right next to this handle. So I think I end up using like 3. There's no sense in getting like, okay, I want to do this every other one, because you're just wasting your tie wraps and your time, because they're going to go away as you come around here. So this is just a temporary set of hands to keep this in place while you're working around it. So in between these two, and one thing I want to show you that I screwed up on. I've got 2 stakes here, and on this one I wasn't watching, and I put 1 stake. Oop, 1 stake in between here. 1 stake in between here. And I should have done 2. It works fine, but it wouldn't have been so crimped if I would have looked and put 2 in between there. So, just something for you to be aware of. Alright, so this is kind of pooching out a little bit. So I'm going to take one here and see if I can't hold that better in place, because it is wet and I'm just right now just giving it some memory. Okay, so I'll go around and do this on the other side. And one thing I do want to show you is I just kind of put a plug of this rim filler in between here. All right, so I'll cut it so that it's snug. And I will, that's a little bit too much, but and I'll push it down in here like that. Okay, so it needs to be snug enough that you're really pushing it. That's what that looks like. It's not continuous if you put a plug in there. I don't like that bulk on the outside, so that's why I do that. Okay, so I'm going to go around and finish this up, and then we'll talk about the rim on the outside. These are overlays, and you see I've got them staggered. The reason I've got them staggered is because it is easier when you start buttoning these up together on the overlap to have them overlaid. It just looks a little bit neater. So when you start them out, you can either start them out straight, and you can cut them so that they're staggered, or you can start out that way. Either way is fine. Alright, so you can see this is a little bit of a pain starting out, and you want to do about 3 wraps. Now I keep these guys long, And then I'll just go, I'll cut them where I need to. But if you want to cut them the length, that's fine too. I figure longer is better. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start the actual pattern here. Well, look at this pattern. I think, what? That's not a pattern, but it is. So basically, your first 2 rows are going to be, and I like to go down, not up. So I'm going to change this right now. So that when I'm weaving, I'm going up and not down. If it works for you going down, that's fine. But I like to do my pattern this way. So there's my 3 to hold it. And I want these guys to be side by side. That's my warp. Okay, so they're nice and right and tight. So I want to go underneath all for 2 wraps. That'd be 1. And this would be 2. Now, this tail, I could probably get rid of. Now, on my 3rd wrap, what I do is I go under, over, under. Then the next 2 are the same as the first one. And these do tend to shift around, especially when you're starting. Doesn't help that I've probably got them too long either. So, these last 2 go under 3. Still making sure that it's tight. One thing I will say to you, you don't want this cane real long, because it's just, it frays more and it tangles more. So do yourself a favor and don't make it real long. I'm going to get rid of that tail. I don't need that anymore. So now what I'm doing is I'm looking at, okay, how am I going to put this thing on here? When I get done with my pattern, next on the next to each stake, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap 3 times. Now I'm going to put this on here so I don't have to have so many hands. Remembering that I am doing my rim underneath that twining. Okay, there should be 3 rows of 3/16, and then there should be twining. So when I put this rim on, I'm going to be underneath the twining, and I'm going to shift this over a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to do 3 rows that, or 3 wraps I should say, that capture the whole thing. Not just the front rim, because that's all we've been working on right now, right? But brings the whole thing together by wrapping the front rim, making sure I don't twist my cane. The front rim grabs the front rim, grabs the back rim, and gets that rim filler. Okay? So, and I see I've got a twist. There we go. So then I'm going to wrap this 3 times, and then I'll start that pattern again. So now I've got it adhered to the basket, right? The rims, the basket, and the whole deal. It's not like the free-flowing. I'm doing the design work off the basket. So here's my 3rd one. So that means as I continue here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work in between the front rim. So this is 2 under, right? Or 3 under? I forget. 2 under, I think. Yeah, 2 under. So, but when I wrap now, I'm just going between the outer rim and the inside of the basket to do this design. So this is 2 wraps with those, my warp under. So that's 3 under. My third one is under, over, under. Right? My next 2 are under 3. And I'm doing this all between the outside rim and the inside wall of the basket. When I'm doing this, we're going to call it twill. It's probably the simplest twill you'll ever do. Okay, so here's my 5th wrap of that pattern. Now I'm looking, okay, can I start doing the, have I come over enough where I can do the wrap for 3? And it's a stretch, but I think I can. So, and you want to wrap 3 times on the side of each stake. Okay, so this time I'm going over all 3 again. Making sure my warp stays all nice and straight. And yeah, that is a little bit of a reach, but that'll work. If you get to the, point in the design where you're like in the middle of a stake, then don't do the 3 wrap. Just keep doing the design around the whole thing. Just keep doing the design, and maybe that means you do the 3 wraps between on the outside of the rim and the outer wall, I guess it would be, of the basket. That's okay. The only thing that you need to make sure of is that you keep the design going, regardless of what it takes, and that you make sure you do 3 wraps somewhere in between each one of those stakes. Oh, I screwed that up. This is the second one. Make sure it's nice and tight. So you want to make sure that your weaver is tight. This does not need to be sprayed. If you do have to spray it for whatever reason, lightly spray it, because of course it's dyed, and that means it has a possibility of bleeding on your cane. Not what you want. Okay, so there's 3, and then I'm back to it again, right? So that would be under 3. So you see what that looks like on top. So go here. All right, so my pattern's on, and actually it looks like right there I've got 4, and this looks like 3, but that's fine. Don't worry about that. Worry about getting 3 wraps and making sure your pattern stays the same here. All right, and that you keep this dry and straight. You do your twill elements between the outside or the rim and the outer wall here until you're doing your wraps to put it all together. Okay, all the way around. And then what you'll do is you'll come up here. Now what I usually do, that's got 3, so I'll like butt those, I guess that would be stagger those on top and then just weave over them, okay, to finish off that design. So that's it. Does it take a little bit of time? It does. Is it worth it? I think it just is a stunning topper to a nice basket. So Yeah, it does take a little bit of time, but it's a really easy twill, and it's just a nice finish to a nice basket. So great beginning twill basket. And once again, if you're thinking, you know, I can look at this and I don't see the design that shows here. If you're looking at yours thinking, I don't see that, walk away from it and then you'll see the design.